Hello everyone, welcome to Josel Apparel. In today's tutorial, I'm going to be making a tiered skirt with Ankara print. This skirt is actually guarded on the waist. It's very simple, beginner friendly, and this tutorial is very detailed. Trust me, you can make this on your own. All you need is a beautiful piece of fabric and an elastic band, and you are cool to go. If this is a tutorial you are interested in, then let's get right into the details. But please do not forget to hit on the subscribe button, like our videos, comment, and share with your friends. Let's get right into the details. For this skirt, you will need Ankara fabric. I have here 2 yards of fabric, and then this fabric is actually a blend of two designs. I'll cut out the green part and then the black and white and combine them to make this tiered skirt. And you also be needing your elastic tape as well. So let's go ahead and cut out our fabric pieces. So to cut your fabric, you will need your skirt length, and then the basic measurement you need again is your waist circumference. So I'll be using the black and white fabric for the first tier of my skirt, and then the green and white for the second tier. So you have to cut out a fabric which is twice your waist measurement for the first tier. I have a waist of 30 inches and both fabrics are actually on fold. So I'm going to measure the width of my fabric. I have 31 inches. I added 1 inch for seam allowance for the first tier. And the length of my fabric is 12.5 inches, almost 13 inches. For the second tier, I have a fabric length of 13 inches. Then the width is about 1.5 times the width of the first tier, which is 49 inches. So I'm going to stitch the sides down on the 1 inch seam allowance I added for both the first tier and then the second tier. So I've stitched this down for the first and then the second. For the second, I ran a loose stitch all around the waist of the second tier of my fabric. So I'll be attaching it to the first tier for my skirt. So this is just a loose stitch. I would draw in gathers from one end to the other so the fabric is able to fit at the hem of the black and white fabric. So I'll just pull out my thread. Remember, I stitched this using a very loose stitch. So I'll pull out, even out the gathers, and then I'll keep matching it onto the hem of the first tier to make sure that it is able to fit around the hem. So I'll keep pulling until the second tier matches the hem of the first tier. So I'm done. I have drawn the gathers on the second tier, and I'm going to be stitching this onto the hem of my first tier. So I'll match the sides where the seams are together. I want the seams to run on the same direction for this skirt, so I'll match the seam lines together on the sides. Then I will hold them down with pins and also pin the gathered skirt onto the hem of the first tier of this skirt. So I'll pin from one side through to the other. And while I'm doing this, I'll ensure that the gathers are even out so that my skirt can come out very well. When done pinning the second tier to the first tier, you head to your sewing machine and then stitch this down on 1/2 inch. So I'll be stitching all around from one side through to the other to complete the second tier of this skirt. So this is what it looks like. I'm done stitching this down on the sewing machine. The next thing I'm going to be doing is to complete the waistband, where we'll be adding our elastic tape. So for the waistband, I have cut out a long strip of fabric that is equal in width with the waist that we have for the top skirt. That's the first tier, so it's long enough, equal in width with the skirt. That is also my waist measurement times 2 plus 1 inch seam allowance. This strip of fabric is on fold and it is 3 inches in width. I'm going to head to my sewing machine and then stitch the sides down on 1 inch, just like we did for the skirt piece of fabric. So I have stitched it down and I have enclosed the waistband. This is what it looks like. So on the sides where the seam are, where I enclose, I'll open it up and then match the side seams to the side seam of the skirt and pin them down together. So I'll be pinning the waistband, one end of the waistband, all around my waist of the first tier of this skirt. So I've pinned it down all around, and I'll head to my sewing machine and then stitch this down all around again on 1/2 inch. So I'm done stitching down. I've turned the fabric to the right side. This is the right side of my fabric. The next thing to do is to fold in the top of the waistband by 1/2 inch. Then I'll fold it again down and then match it to the seam line I have here. I'll match it down that way. Then I'll head to my sewing machine and stitch this down all around on that same seam line I have. But then I'll be leaving a space of about 1 to 2 inches so I can be able to pass my elastic through. Alternatively, you can also fold in the 1/2 inch and then press it all around so you can be sure you have folded in 1/2 inch. Then you fold it back in again to create the casing where we'll be passing our elastic. So I've done that. I created the opening at the sides where I have the seam joined together. This is it. The opening is here. So the next I'm going to do is to insert my elastic band. So the waistband is dependent on the width of the elastic tape you are using. So because I have 1 inch for the width of my elastic and the length of my elastic being 30 inches, that's my waist measurement. That is why I created the waistband to be 3 inches, 1 inch for the seam allowance, and then when I fold in 2 inches, I'll be having my waistband equal to the space I have on top of the waistband. So I'll insert the waistband all around. I had to decrease my elastic tape by 5 inches. So depending on how tight you want the waistband to be, you can either cut it to match your waist measurement or reduce it a bit. So I reduced mine by 5 inches. And I went ahead to insert the elastic band through the casing we created at the waist of this skirt. So while you insert, make sure that you even out the gathers on the waist so that the waistline will be very beautiful. So I'm done inserting. I'll overlap the elastic band by 1 inch. Then I would head to my sewing machine and lock the stitch it up to hold it in place, and I'll also close up the opening we left to be able to pass my elastic band through. So this is what the waist looks like. The gathered waist is looking beautiful. I have closed it up, and the last thing to do is to fold in 1/2 inch twice on the hem, and then finish off the hem of this skirt by stitching it down on our sewing machine, and we are done. This is the final look of my skirt. Very beautiful, very easy, beginner friendly, and I hope you will give this video a thumbs up and also subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for making time to watch this tutorial. We'll see you in our next tutorial.